Hey everybody, and hope everyone is doing well as usual. And also kia ora, which means it's a greeting in Polynesian, in the Maori language, which means I wish you life and vitality, for example. So it's great. I think it's really cool, which is what my video is about, kind of. Of course, if you haven't yet, give the video a thumbs up and share your ideas and comments or thoughts. Um, and if I get anything wrong, please let me know too. If you're watching and you're familiar with the culture, I'll do my best here. Okay, so and again, subscribe too if you haven't already. Now, I came across a really interesting article, and there's a woman in New Zealand, and I put her name in the notes, for the video. Her name is it's Oriini Kaipara, which is, and I believe it's a Polynesian name or of Maori origin. So real quick, Polynesian people, there's several different countries and cultures that they come from, but New Zealand, the indigenous people, are the Maori people, and that's how it's said with a long A, and then you got to roll the R, like with Spanish. And they have a very rich culture there, and part of that involves like facial tattooing. The men get their face tattooed, like the whole thing, and there's meaning behind these things and the symbols. And I'll get into that a little bit more a little bit later, but and the women do it just on their chin here, and they also tattoo their lips black. Sometimes not at all, just under the chin, and sometimes partially they do the lips. So, but it's a very old tradition that they've had, and it is done for a few reasons, and it has a few different kinds of meanings. So one is it's a mark of beauty, for example. So it's meant to be like attractive to men. It is a sign, like a rite of passage, and you're not required to get it, but if you choose to um, just connect with and represent your culture and identity, um, that much more, it represents that journey, and that mark represents that journey when you wear it on your face. And it's seen as a gift from their gods, and the symbolism and the power, or the mana they call it, the power of the symbol and of the journey, that is what is represented as part of the tattoo as well. So, and shows your ties to your roots of your people and your culture. So it's a very deep and meaningful thing to wear for women if they choose to get it. And there was a story that this lady did. She was the first newscaster to have facial tattoo tribal markings to deliver a newscast, I believe, ever. So, and she's still doing the news, I think, for the last 2 years. She's like a main newscaster over there. But she's also a cultural ambassador, and she shares this information so that people over there can coexist with each other, and they have this knowledge so they can be more aware um, of each other and their differences so that they can get along better. So one example is, and this is the video I came across, is there was a woman in a park over there with her kids, and then there was a Caucasian, a white woman over there with her kids, and she came over and said, "Can you cover up your chin tattoo or wear a mask? Because or if you can't, can you please leave because your tattoo is scaring my children." So that's what kind of triggered me to think, um, like triggered these thoughts, in other words. And I was like, I want to talk about this and let's kind of get to the bottom of it, because I think it was a misunderstanding, and it makes sense when you really think about it. And I think talking about these things and sharing knowledge allows us to elevate our awareness and therefore understanding of these cultural differences when we come across them. So now, facial tattoos in general, I think in the West, like here in America, there's a certain stigma, and it's not always good. So it's kind of associated with counterculture or shock value. There are also elements, for example, of could be identified with street culture and like gang membership, or just people who enjoy face tattoos, and the tattoos themselves represent the culture. So you could have anything from like a cross, like a Christian cross on your face, to like Satan written across your forehead and 666, and death and murder. So really, you could put anything you want on your face. But in general, there are there's different symbolism and meaning behind these sort of things. And in the West, in general, I think it's just considered like sleeve tattoos are okay as long as they're not showing at work. So we have different rules, like unwritten rules about how these things work. And of course, it varies from culture to culture. Like I know in Ethiopia and East Africa, and I met a woman like this who runs a restaurant up the road. She's so sweet, but she has a really cool looking Christian cross tattoo. She's a Christian, I think Eastern Orthodox Ethiopian Church, and she has a tattoo right here, right in her forehead, and it looks awesome. And she's such a sweet lady. So over there, that sort of thing is a mark of devotion, I believe. Um, in Japan, tattoos are simply associated with criminals and like organized crime, and it has been for the longest time. Recently, in the past few decades, like a couple decades or so, I know more youngsters have been getting tattoos. Not quite like they do in America, and overall, it's still considered unacceptable. And there's businesses that have signs that won't serve you in Japan if you have tattoos. So, because of their association with like the mafia over there, their organized crime. So again, it differs from country to country. Now, with the Maori here over there in New Zealand, I was explaining a little bit about what their tattoo means and the placement of it as well. And I don't think so. When you think of things like frightening, these things are subjective on one hand, but we can always kind of meet in the middle. There's always a middle ground, and I'll explain that here in a second. So let's look at the alternatives, or the different possibilities. One possibility is zero face tattoos, of course. The other is simply people have tattoos on their face. So now we have to break down what these tattoos mean and what we mean by, off-putting or scary or that kind of thing. And even if something is cultural and it could be scary to someone, like I find that tattoo just beautiful and powerful, and I love the way it looks. And if you research it, it just looks so cool, the tribal designs and everything. But to someone else, it could be terrifying, or maybe a religious thing. You're not supposed to mark up your face, and I understand that. But if we understand each other's cultural differences, we can then coexist and tolerate them on a certain middle ground. So I think it's understandable, and I don't think you're wrong if you don't like facial tattoos, but you should allow for other cultures to express them if they're appropriate. And I think that's where we can meet in the middle, because I don't think there's anything appropriate about like death and murder and like Satan on your forehead. If someone had that like at the park, or they were at the restaurant and they were taking your food order, I think it's more understandable for all parties that this sort of thing may be a little bit off-putting and maybe a little bit nerve-wracking. Person could be totally fine though. It doesn't mean they're an evil person or a lawbreaker. Could just be their way of expressing itself. But I think if we understand what is acceptable in general, because I think most people would say that sort of thing is just, that could be scary, in other words. So just to kind of summarize everything, I really think the nature of what you're witnessing as far as face tattoos and understanding the history and tradition behind it doesn't have to make you like it, but knowledge helps empower you, and it also assists, I think, with tolerance and the ability for us to all get along. And to understand these things, I think understanding is key as well. Now, on a final note, I just want to say that in general, I don't think I've ever met any Maori people from New Zealand, but I met a lot of Polynesian people from Hawaii and Tonga, and I've met a lot of Samoan people too. And I just want to say their culture is great. I've never had, I don't think ever, a bad experience. I invite you and challenge you to go meet people of different cultures, and just to share that I think you guys are great. I think Polynesian people are wonderful. In my experience, it's a very loyal, happy, and welcoming they're always so friendly and always so warm and sharing. And but they're very family oriented, uh, like a tribal and clan based, family type of society, and that's their culture, music, and God and faith, as well as um, warrior. I love the warrior aspect of Polynesia. They have cool hakas and war chants and beautiful like hula dances and that sort of thing. Very spiritual too. And if you haven't seen the All Black haka before, their rugby, All Black is a New Zealand team from the rugby team from New Zealand, and they do a Polynesian war chant before every single game, and it's super cool. So you guys should go check it out. So, you guys are great, and so is everybody else. Thank you for watching, and really appreciate your time as always. And please take care, and we'll see you in the next video.